When I first came to the Abbey, I remember people talking about the self centered thought a whole lot. The self centered thought this, the self centered thought that. And I thought to myself, what's that about? Why are these people picking on the self centered thought? Aren't we supposed to be minding our own karma and taking responsibility for getting ourselves out of cyclic existence? And I had previously practiced in different Buddhist traditions before I came here, in the Theravada and the Zen traditions, and never had I heard so much mention of the self centered thought. The enemies to be overcome were always the three root afflictions of ignorance, attachment, and anger. So trying to figure this out, it's taken a really long time. And I think finally there's been some progress in seeing why the self centered thought is the cause of almost all of our problems. For a long time, I couldn't even see the self centered thought. And even still, it's quite difficult to detect, I think, on a daily basis. It's just the way I think, it's the way I make sense of the world. And yeah, my way of looking at things seems completely unbiased. Of course, it's really well informed, it's rational, it's fair. And because of this, I don't see any problem with getting angry when people don't agree with my opinions or when they don't do things that I want them to do. Even worse, the self-centered thought justifies my attachment or my sense of entitlement to the things that I'm attached to. And of course, people should always say nice and flattering things to me. They should put my needs first, if not on the same level as their own. And they should always make sure that I'm comfortable and at ease. But worst of all is about the self-centered thought is the ignorance and the unknowing that there's even some distortion there going on. And this prevented me from recognizing patterns in my life where I had the same challenges and conflicts coming up again and again. And because of the self centered thought, I just concluded that the world is an ugly place. People are selfish, they're untrustworthy, they're unfair, irrational. And so, yeah, the world is just a bleak place, and that's how it is. But yeah, little did I know, it's actually this past weekend I had a little insight when we were talking about forgiveness that maybe it's the self centered thought that has made the world seem like such a dark place. And there are two kinds of self centered thought. One is afflicted, and the other is not afflicted. And it's the afflicted kind that really causes the most problems for us and causes us to hurt others. But the trouble is that it's not always easy to see what the difference is. What's healthy self-concern versus what's unreasonable selfishness. And Venerable Chojan has said that the afflictions and self-centered thought are best friends. They prop each other up, they protect each other from being challenged. And when I think about how the self-centered thought supports the afflictions, the term that came to mind is running interference. And this is a term used in football where the players on the team will prevent the other team from tackling the person with the ball by running right in front of them or straight into them. So I think the self-centered thought does this in a few ways. First of all, it really prevents me from even seeing my afflictions as afflictions. It makes them seem virtuous. I have a right to this. This is what's just. This is what's fair. The self-centered thought also, it's really good at debating. It's like the best debater I could ever meet. It's got argument after argument after argument, why my attachment, why my anger is justified. So I always saw that as the real debater, to face with all that we learn here. And then it's like great at putting earplugs into my ears when other people are trying to express their needs and their opinions. But maybe most of all, it's really good at coming up with these dramas and stories that just consume all of my energy and all my attention so that I can't even notice that there's an affliction running and do anything about it. Venerable Chodron, again, has said that the self-centered attitude is a master scriptwriter. And this is definitely the case. I've seen my mind come up with really outlandish horror stories about what's going to happen, what other people's motivations are about me. And then later I find out it's not true, and I have a really hard time believing it, even though it's like obvious. Thankfully, because of looking at my mind so much for the past few years, I've been able to detect when this scriptwriter gets going. And the stories have even started to seem a little bit boring. So I think this is another really big accomplishment. And so this weekend, Venerable Chodron is teaching on good karma, which is a commentary on Dhammarakshita's Wheel of Sharp Weapons. And there's this refrain that runs throughout the text. It calls the self-centered thought a betrayer, a butcher, an enemy. And then the Guru Puja calls the self-centered thought a monstrous demon. And so when I first heard these characterizations, I thought they were a little bit extreme. But actually, the more I look at my mind, the more I do realize just how painful it is to have this view and how much suffering self-absorption and self-obsession causes. My whole childhood and adolescence, I think, could have been much better if I had learned to focus on the needs and the feelings of others and less on my own. This wasn't what was reinforced by society, but I think, yeah, there's a lot of innate grasping too at our own needs and our own wants when we're so young. So thankfully, there are things that we can do to minimize the self-centered thought. I think just interacting with people, not holding yourself up and running away from the world. That's kind of what I was planning to do when I ordained. But that hasn't been possible. Living at the Abbey, you're around people all the time, and everywhere you turn, there's an opportunity to practice letting go of your own opinions, your own desires, and making space for other people. And I sometimes think that living in community is more difficult than keeping monastic vows because the self-centered thought gets challenged so directly and so frequently. But I do think that the two need to go together. I know it'd be very difficult for me to keep my vows without living in a supportive community, and it would be very difficult to reduce my selfishness without having precepts that really rein that in. So now I would really like to boost up some of the other players, bodhicitta and great compassion, and have them start running interference against the self-centered thought, so that eventually I can tackle the self-grasping ignorance, which is actually the root. And so may we all do this together.